Today's lecture is about rational exponents. So here I have two examples of a rational exponent. 4 raised to the 1/2 is rational because the exponent is a fraction. And 5 raised to the 1/2 is rational again because the exponent is a fraction. So in order for us to work with the rational exponents, we have to remember our rules of exponents. So our rules of exponent was x to the nth power times x to the m power. Well, with the exponent multiplying, assuming they have the same base, then we add the exponents, right? And when you're dividing, if they have the same base, the base is the x, you subtract the exponents. And if you have one power raised to another power, in this case, you will do what? You will multiply the exponents, right? And so there are more, there's like 7 of them, but this is the 3 main ones that you have to memorize. So for these rational exponents, well, the 4 to the 1/2 can be reduced. You will learn later that reduced down to 2. But the 5 to the 1/2, you cannot reduce that any further, right? So 5 to the 1/2 just stays 5 to the 1/2. But for us, we're going to practice simplifying some rational exponents. So for example, suppose we want to simplify x to the 1/2 times x to the 1/2. Well, here we just use the rule of exponents. We are multiplying and the bases are the same, x and x. So that's the same base. You're being asked to multiply them, right? So x to the 1/2 times x to the 1/2 is equal to x to the 1/2 plus 1/2, right? When you multiply, you add the exponents. And we know that 1/2 plus 1/2 is x to the 2/2, which equals to x to the 1 power, right? So the answer to this is just x. So that's example 1. Example 2, you're asked to simplify x to the 1/4 times x to the 5/4. So the process is the same. We are going to add the exponents. So it's going to end up with x to the 1/4 plus 5/4. Right? So when you add the base, the denominators are the same, so you just add the numerator, so you get x to the 6/4. Now you could reduce x to the 6/4 by dividing the 6 by 2 and the 4 by 2. So you need the same number that divide into 6 and 4. So divide 2 into 6, you get 3, and 2 into 4, you get 2. So x raised to the 1/4 power times x to the 5/4 power is equal to x to the 3/2. All right, next example. We have example 3, and it wants you to simplify 3x raised to the 1/2 power times 3x raised to the 1/2 power. So here the base is 3x. So it's the same base. So what you do, you add the exponents. So you have 3x to the power of 1/2 plus 1/2. And that's going to equal to 3x, 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1. And so the answer would just be 3x. All right. Let's see example 4. You want to simplify x to the 3/5 raised to the 5/4 power. So again, in this rule, when you are one power raised to another power, then you have to multiply the exponent. So this is going to be x to the 3/5 times 5/4. Right? So you multiply the exponent in this instance. So when you multiply here, the 5s will cancel each other, right? Cancel. And so what you have is x raised to the 3/4 power. And so that would be the answer, right? Because the 5s could cancel. If you want, you could multiply 3 times 5 is 15, and 5 times 4 is 20, end up with x raised to the 15 over 20. And then when you reduce that, dividing top and bottom by 5, you get 3/4 just the same. All right, another example is now you want to simplify x raised to the 2/3, all raised to the power 3/4, and then you have to multiply that by 5/6. So process is the same. We're going to do this part first. It's a two-part, right? One exponent raised to another exponent, and then we want to multiply. So we're going to do the part where you have x to the 2/3 raised to the 3/4 first. Let's see what that equals to. Whatever the result is, we're going to multiply it times x to the 5/6, right? So remember, if one exponent raised to another exponent, you multiply. So this becomes x to the 2/3 times 3/4. So again, the 3's cancel. So this becomes x to the 2/4 that you can also reduce by dividing top and bottom by 2 to get x to the 1/2. So x to the 2/3 raised to the 3/4 is 1/2. So now we're going to take x to the 1/2 and we're going to multiply that by x to the 5/6. And the result of that would be the answer to the problem. So same reason, when you're multiplying now, you're going to add the exponent. So this becomes x to the 1/2 plus 5/6. So now we need a common denominator. So we have to multiply the 1/2, right? We're trying to figure what is 1/2 plus 5/6. So you need a common denominator. So you have to multiply by 3. And whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So this becomes 3/6 plus 5/6. So when you add these two, they have the same denominator as 6. You end up with x raised to the 8/6, right? 3 plus 5 is 8, and you keep the denominator 6. And then, of course, you can reduce this. So the final answer to the problem is x, divide top and bottom by 2, end up with 4/3. So the answer is x raised to the 4/3. All right. So below, we have one more. And here, we want to simplify x to the 7/5 divided by x to the 3/5. So here we're dividing, the base are the same. So what we're going to do, subtract the powers. So this is going to be x to the 7/5 minus 3/5. And so the denominators are the same, so you just subtract the numerator. And so 3 from 7 leaves 4 over 5. And that would be the answer to this problem. All right, so below I have some for you to try, so good luck.